Dick bringing you another science presentation on a Saturday, the 20th of January in 2024. We're glad to be back with you. There have been some technical difficulties, but we're back online, and today we'd like to talk about time. Time has been a focus of my interest in these presentations for quite a while. In November and December of 2022, I delivered the first ever definition of time that makes rational sense and can be accepted by science. That is my job, is to define terms so that we all can be on the same page in order to make progress in understanding. Now that's fallen into disfavor these days, and we'd like to begin in discussing what is the current rage in the discussion of space-time, which of course is at the top of the list in modern physics ever since Albert Einstein somehow divined a geometric relationship between space and time, which I and Ruđer Josip Bošković, separated by a mere quarter of a millennium, were able to validate that Einstein got it right. The only problem with Einstein's formulation of space-time, which was devised in order to come up with a better formula for gravity than Newton had done, the only problem with Einstein's formulation is that he was stuck with linear algebra, which, if you haven't seen my prior lectures, either in 2023 or 2022, you might not be aware, as certainly all of physics is currently unaware, that linear algebra is absolutely helpless. It has failed in cosmic science at the two edges, which neither does physics understand, even the two edges that it has reached, because for historical reasons, which I won't go into again right now, physics has lost track completely of geometry. One of the signs of illness is the current focus on just one geometry, which in fact is the geometry that Albert Einstein was forced to use in order to compose his geometrically sound solution for volume space gravity. That's redundant, but it is volume space and therefore is totally bound to the current mathematical and geometric basis of modern science, which is hamstrung on cubic geometry. Cubic. This is the extension to 3D of planar geometry, which the Greeks taught us. And Albert took cubic geometry and extended it logically using a variant of complex algebra in order to devise a fourth axis using what is called 4D geometry, except in order to put time into proper relationship with space, he was forced to negate the time axis, and that gives us what is called formally, and I am the only man to ever say this, but it is true, it is called officially pseudo-hyperbolic geometry. Pseudo-hyperbolic. The two questions which you would ask if you're a rational scientist, as I trust you are or wish to be, would be, what do you mean by pseudo? This would not be I, but what is meant by pseudo? Why is it false? And why is it hyperbolic? Well, pseudo is the result of linearization, because hyperbolicity is curvature, which is a continuous form of geometry, whereas linear geometry is not continuous, and therefore the geometry that was imposed upon Einstein in order to come up with the linear algebraic solution for gravity to improve on Newton, he was forced into a four-line system where the fourth axis is imaginary in order to get complexity, which, as I've taught you, means to get a curvature function, and the fact that the three spatial coordinates have to be positive because that's direction, and that has to be positive in linear spatial separation. So in the cubic formulation, which we call 3D, he was bound to that. He was not allowed by nature or mankind or both. He simply did not see the correct geometry because nobody has seen it except, the reason I produce these lectures is that I have seen the correct geometry, but Albert was forced into a newly discovered at his time, 1905 and 1915, when he came up with special and general relativity, respectively. He was using a brand new geometry that had just been discovered less than a century earlier, called 4D geometry, which Minkowski and Lorentz, just to name two men, but they are the prominent names, and Einstein knew them both, they had used a 4D system, one axis of which has to be imaginary since the three spatial coordinates fill space cubically. The fourth axis, which I always draw on a diagonal because you can't see it, it definitely is imaginary, but what Einstein did that puts his name among the immortals, he made it imaginary time. And today we're going to discuss imaginary time because there is a current fantasy, a psychosis, an aspect of modern physics which is forced upon those who wish to make progress. They're hamstrung just as Einstein was. And in order to solve the quantum paradox, and in order to address the reciprocal problem, which is at the edge of space, which of course is infinite and therefore imaginary, in order to access time-space, which is usually called space-time, and they're almost equivalent, but in the 4D system, the three spatial axes must be positive because it's distance, linear distance, but the fourth one has to be negated. It can't be positive, or you get what's called hyperspace. And hyperspace is not exactly what is needed in order to compose the Einstein field equation. Instead, instead of hyperspace, he created pseudo-hyperspace. And in the method that he used, which he basically discovered, it turns out to be pseudo, not spherical, as you would expect for gravity, since gravity is a spherical phenomenon. There is no spherical geometry, and so he was forced to use an inversion. And that is the correct term. It's an inversion. And it's hyperbolic, but since it's linear and not actually curved, it's pseudo-hyperbolic. So, that describes why it's pseudo. It's because it's hyperbolic, but it's linearized hyperbolicity. And the hyperbolic, why is it hyperbolic? It's because time is negated. It goes in the opposite direction of linear spatial separation in cubic space. And therefore it forms a spherical function, and that's miraculous. What is even more miraculous is that in order to make this composition, which is the highest reach of linear algebra known to man, surpassing anything currently in quantum mechanics, which is hamstrung, for reasons I'm getting to, but in order to break the logjam in his mind, he was able to see that time is orthogonal with space. So you have cubic space, and time is perpendicular to cubic space. That is impossible to visualize, and therefore this cannot be understood with a footnote. Einstein understood it. If anybody since Einstein has been able to understand space-time, which is pseudo-hyperbolic geometry, they've been unable to capitalize on their insight. I am the first man ever to realize what Einstein actually discovered. A second discovery came my way after I had composed spherical geometry, which solves for Einstein's dilemma. I ran across Ruđer Josif Bošković, who solved the quantum paradox 250 years ago. And therefore I am now equipped with the brilliant insights of Einstein and the brilliant insights of Bošković. I am now able to give you a formulation of time that is superior to any definition that came before. And by definition, according to the rules of science, this changes science, because I have the correct definition of time. Now currently, because of the psychosis that has overcome modern cutting-edge physics, the psychosis that's forced from the linear algebra dilemma, which we inherited from Einstein, there have been a series of harebrained ideas which are forced upon physics in an effort to make progress in science. So the men who come up with these harebrained ideas are actually doing real science, but it's pathetic. It's pathetic and it's ludicrous because they're using linear algebra, and that cannot work because it has a zero at its basis and it has a false notion of infinity, and therefore we have singularities all through physics. I could name at least 4 singularities. What is a singularity? That's a mathematical concept that has geometric repercussions, proving that linear algebra is inadequate for modern physics. And that should have been realized a century ago. Our physicists are deluded. They're actually psychotic. And they know it. They know it. But the fallback is provided by governments, particularly the United States government, which is rather ludicrously called the United States government since it's not actually an American government. It's more of a world government, or what Leon Trotsky, the famous communist, called an internationalist government, which is the goal of communism that has been achieved, and the United States is now under foreign control. I mention this in order to give some bracketing information for why physicists and presenters on YouTube who attempt to interpret physics for the modern public are absolutely brainwashed. Absolutely brainwashed. And the science, so-called, that you get on the internet is pseudoscience. And it's worse. It's propaganda. It's an industry now which serves the government, because you must never actually understand. You must never know the truth. So today, what I would like to present to you for your entertainment, since that's the only way I can reach you, is through entertainment, because of the propagandistic system that has locked down the public to ignorance. I will present to you today the modern theory of time. Psychotic in the extreme. Is time real? PBS, a presenter on YouTube, has presented recently, within the past year, a typical presentation of the modern conception of time, which is totally up for grabs. Because we know, that is, we as the public, we realize that in order to break the quantum paradox, or to make any further progress in cosmology, it is necessary to somehow diverge from what we think we understand. And now it's just grasping at straws. But one of the major foci of a possible divergence from what we think we understand into something that we could understand better, to a better threshold, is time. Space, nobody touches. But time, nobody understands. Now, I gave a geometric and algebraic solution for time a little over a year ago, but today I want to tell you what is the rage The absolute top of the list in entertainment right now is the physics of time. And I hope I surprise you by telling you that back in 1908, this is right in between Einstein's release of special relativity and general relativity, which, as I said, are 1905 and 1915 respectively. In 1908, a man named McTaggart, whose name is famous now, even though you may not know it. If you do, you're under the influence of propaganda. But McTaggart was a visionary, and he foresaw how this would eventually become popular. But in his day, it was still popular. In 1908, he stated, and he is considered to have proved that time. Today, we have a man who's extremely famous, a man named Barbour, Julian Barbour. His last name is spelled B-A-R-B-O-U-R. He's still kicking. He's 86 years old. He may have just turned 87. But he actually capitalized on McTaggart's supposed proof that time is unreal, and now Julian Barbour is at the top of the list in presentations on YouTube, and in books, and in lectures all over the world. An absolutely insane, anti-scientific, I characterize it correctly as psychotic. This is scientific psychosis. Time is not real. Well, you could say that because it is imaginary, but as I've shown you in prior lectures, excuse me, I'm trying to adjust my, there we go. I hope that's better. There. Time is the imaginary axis, but that does not mean it's unreal. It could not be used if it were unreal. But what does it mean that it's imaginary? I hope you know, but if you haven't heard my lectures, you could not be expected to know, since physics does not know. But imaginarity is a mathematical trick in order to illegally get sphericity into cubic space, which is necessary because gravity is a spherical phenomenon. So is the quantum. The quantum is a spherical phenomenon. So, in using linear algebra, it was brought out as predicted essentially by McTaggart, now capitalized by Balfour, or Barbour I mean. Time must be unreal. That's much different from saying imaginary. Imaginarity is real, but unreality is unreal. So is time real or not? The common perception now is that it's probably unreal, but I challenge you to define how in the world could time be unreal. The way that this was done by McTaggart and has been reutilized by modern pseudophysicists, who I'm forced to call them that since they're not promoting understanding. They're leading people away from understanding, since if you deny reality, you're not a scientist. You're either a weirdo philosopher, or worse, you're actually superstitious. In 1908, McTaggart challenges logic itself with his proposition that time cannot exist due to an infinite regression. I want you to hold on to that term in the back of your mind, because at the end, I'll show you why that's ridiculous. He says, that is McTaggart says, and Barbour says as well in modern times, and it is accepted now, that time cannot exist due to an infinite regression. What does that mean? I'll show you. Most professors on this quaint topic begin the proposed two series of time solution for the non-existence of time. These two series have identifiers A and B. They're called Series A and Series B, and you will hear professors and presenters referring to Series A and Series B of time. However, the two series are actually identical. But again, McTaggart was not interested in logic. He was interested in creating an amusing puzzle. Now, if McTaggart was with me right now for a debate, he would be furious because I just told him that he is not interested in logic. Actually, his thesis is that he's proved logically that there's no such thing as time. Now, listen carefully to an analogy. I'm from Santa Cruz, and we have a place called the Mystery Spot, and I've been there with my sisters, in fact, and we were all duly impressed that the Mystery Spot shows quite a few optical illusions, which are quite entertaining. It's a lot of fun. But when you visit places with names such as the Mystery Spot, it's bad form to point out the illusions. Nobody there at the Mystery Spot wants a scientist telling them why what they're seeing is not anti-gravity. That's not fun. It's not fair. You're supposed to be having fun with McTaggart's bullshit. It's fiction. That's not illegal. But if you say that it's logic, that is illegal, and you need to be executed. Now, that's not with a chopping block, although I don't rule that out. But it's not fun. You're spoiling everybody's fun in the Mystery Spot. You're spoiling everybody's fun in the wonderful, wonderful, miraculously J.R.R. Tolkien. Time is not real. Time is not real. Well, get some beer, get some whiskey, put on your bullshit modern thumping music, and dance, if you still know how. But if you suspend your critical faculty, as is required to enjoy any fiction such as The Hobbit or Star Wars, then to enter into the spirit of the McTaggart Barber illusion is challenging. It's challenging. How do you convince yourself that time is an illusion when you know that it's not? It is as if a science fiction novelist began his story, "The real is unreal." Well, that makes stupid people excited because they're bored. The real is unreal? Holy moly, that's better than Paris Hilton taking off her bra. Actually, that version of the puzzle, which is reality is unreal, that version of the puzzle is very popular. Why is it popular? 2 reasons. The government supports propaganda. And if you say that reality is unreal, that'll get you money. That'll get you money, especially on YouTube. And the time version of this stupid puzzle is merely a variant of the same card trick. What I noticed when I was first exposed to this prank is that the shysters observed none of the ordinary rules of logic. It's as if they were above the rules of science. After claiming that there are 2 series of time, McTaggart says that the second series is pointless, so that's a red herring. Then he attempts to show that the first series leads to an infinite regression. Infinite regression. He thinks that he can prove something about time, namely that it does not exist, by an infinite regression. What does he mean by that? Well, we already know that anything you care to say about anything leads to an infinite regression. So what? That's it. And that's the end. He's an idiot. He's a shyster. And the modern version, promoted by such eminent physicists as Barber, is pure anti-science. It's to get you off the scent of reality. Some of the fun tricks you can pull on these fools are now, I wish to disclose to you some things you can do to have some fun at their expense, since they're attempting to have fun with you at your expense. So you can at least join in the fun, that's fair. So even if you're a normal logical person, you can grab their ass. They're trying to grab your ass. Here's what you can say. Time has to exist because it takes time to listen to your nonsense, and even more time to forget that you ever existed. Here's something else you can say just for fun, to join in the science fiction fun. Time is real because reality has 3 syllables, whereas time has only one syllable. Therefore, I don't have time for your horseshit. This is Anagalactic, bringing you the secrets of the universe. I don't want to wear you out by talking too much. I hope this is under a half an hour, that you had as much fun listening to this as I had telling you that yes, time is real. Children know it's real. Normal people know it's real. Don't listen to these modern astrophysicists who are literally out of their goddamn minds. Time is real. And that'll be in the next lecture. This is Anagalactic, bringing you the secrets of the universe. Don't forget to look up. Don't forget that light years are measured in time. So if there's no such thing as time, there's no such thing as the universe. We'll be right back. Thank you.